this will be great for? To make a video about.
True. Okay, so I have a big question which I've been holding in my head for most of the time I sleep. Hey Sam, where do you think Europe ends?
It's split through in Istanbul, it's very easy, Kinde.
I'm gonna have to check that. Europe end. Okay. It's mostly just showing me pictures of a straight divide by a mostly straight line going through Kazakhstan. Odd. It seems it goes that there's multiple different definitions. I've seen Georgia become European and so is Russia and Kazakhstan. But on Asian maps, I've also seen Armenia, Turkey, and even sometimes Cyprus.
What about
Asian?
What about the overseas territories of France and UK? Does those count as Europe?
If we count those as Europe, Europe's in South America, sir. And even in Oceania.
Do you know what this will be great for? To make a video about.
True. Okay, so I have a big question which I've been holding in my head for most of the time I sleep. It's that, where does Europe end? No, but seriously, we've all been taught, or maybe not all of us, most of us have been taught that there's 7 continents. But then, where does the Europe divide end? Yeah, we've all been taught that it ends like through Finland all the way till Greece, or we've been taught that it cuts right through Russia and Turkey, and also sometimes Kazakhstan. But really, when does it end? Because we have countries like Armenia, which are mostly Christian, which means that they should be European, but they're not. They're classified as Asian. And then we also have overseas territories, which is... How are we going to categorize places like St. Pierre and Miquelon and Reunion? And those are just French territories. What about a Sicilian island? Okay. So, now with all of the data I have collected from trying to see what is the straight divide, it seems that a lot of my pages cut right through Istanbul and Moscow and did not enter Kazakhstan. But by my definition, it should go all the way into Uzbekistan. So, where does it really end? So I will try to explain that to you, and I will try to make some sense out of it.
So, first things first, this is an invisible line. No one decided that they'll go all around Europe and tell people which place is not Europe and which one is Asia. No one drew an entire line on the earth to tell which one is Asia and which one is Europe. Isn't that correct, Khalid?
Yes, it is. No one actually made a metaphorically real wall to show. So that really just gives us more questions than we have answers.
And we also know that Europe and Asia are one tectonic plate. So thus, there should be one continent.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people saying Eurasia, Australasia, Eurasia, Australasia, there's Afro, Euro, Asia, and there's multiple others. And it gets quite confusing. So where does the borders actually start and when do they end? A lot of countries could be classified as well European, for example, France, the UK, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Finland, Sweden, and Ukraine, and mostly half of the Balkans. So, what is really Asian? A lot of countries which are considered Asia could be Saudi Arabia, Iran, India, China, Japan, Laos, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and, well, Russia. How Russia, you may ask? Well, Russia is what people call a Eurasian country. And we have some examples of this outside Eurasia. A few people, like, now, no, not that much of a few people. Consider, because of the Suez Canal built by the British, Egypt is an Afro-Asian country. And if that's the definition, then Kazakhstan, Russia, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, and Cyprus, including Georgia, are all Euro-Asian or Eurasian.
And also that means that Panama belongs to South America. Because of the Panama Canal is the only thing making it North American, isn't it?
True. So where do we actually draw the lines? Let's first make a clear decision. Now, my first way to define if a country is European, this is quite a wrong definition because, well, there's a lot of Orthodox, including some Muslim, not completely Muslim, but some countries which have, well, a dabble of Muslim in them, like Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo. Okay. So, I say that most of Europe is Christian or capitalist. And by that definition, Russia and a lot of the Baltic and Belarus and Ukraine are not in this definition, including Poland, which removes almost all of real considered Europe out of Europe. So now let's go remove the capitalism part and we get even a better of a definition. That means Bosnia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Albania, and Serbia, including Russia and Kazakhstan, plus Turkey, and also Azerbaijan and Georgia are not European. But then, where do we actually call it European? If Armenia is, well, Christian, that doesn't make sense, right?
Maybe we should categorize it by culture.
Yeah, true. Culture might make a big, well, understanding. Now, a mostly capitalist culture, we say, could define that Europe mostly goes all the way from the Russo-Belarusian border to the Canal of Istanbul. So where did that take us? That means that all of this is Europe and this is Asia. But then, about those maps which say that Kazakhstan is European, that's where we get to understand things. So I will try to explain to you as I try to get more information.
So, the thing about Kazakhstan and Turkey. Turkey prizes itself as a country that is European and Asian at the same time. The question is, if we define by culture, which countries and what culture are we talking about? Because Europe doesn't have one culture. No country has one culture, or else every country would be kind of boring.
Aha! I got it. It says, well, using the border, Kazakhstan does fall into the partly in Europe. About 10% of the country is in the European side of the Ural Mountains.
So it's 10%. That means Kazakhstan, using how we usually divide Russia, that means Kazakhstan is Asian because most of the population is on the Asian side, isn't it?
True. That could be the same said for the Russians, except reversed. A lot of Russians live on the European side. Now let's go population-wise. Now, without putting people abroad, we could say firmly that Russia is European. make sense. Russia never been European. Well, that's in some cases. So, how do we define this new border? Also, in that case, Turkey's kind of European, so. Okay. Now let's use a definition which has been used a lot of times. The borders used in maps of Europe. Now, if we see the borders used in maps of Europe, mostly the ones you can access from the internet and newspapers, and well, printed papers, you would see that, well, it shows Morocco to Tunisia in most maps, including going as far as to show a little bit of Kazakhstan. But how? In fact, I've seen a few maps which show stuff like Syria all the way to Palestine. But that doesn't make sense. We've never said that anything other than Turkey is not European. So how is this happening? How is this possible? So, I have a good explanation for you. Those maps are trying to show as much as in European radius. Now, if we are to say that everything that they call Russian and Kazakh is European on that map, again on that map, then we could also say that Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Tunisia are all European. But now let's go for a solid one. I'm gonna be binging something.
Now, meanwhile Clive is searching, I am going to talk to you about the overseas part of Europe. When I mean overseas, I mean the last part of the colonial empire that died how many years ago? So, the overseas parts of Europe are usually Dutchland, France, or UK. Knowing that those people still like their land, even though it's not theirs. UK likes to inhabit lands that no one lives in and start wars over things that are useless. But knowing every country has a part of its history that you just ask, why? So, UK and all these other European countries still have some small colonial empires in other parts of the world. Like, if we talked about the full extent of France, well, France reaches to Oceania then. Africa, Oceania, and South America are all parts of France. Will that be technically correct? Yes, it would be correct. But it's also wrong, because overseas territories aren't considered part of the country. That's why they're called overseas. As in over seas. So these are not part of the country. Then what are they exactly? They're not colonial empires. That's definitely not what they are. Because you can't call a collection of rocks your colonial empire. It just doesn't work like that.
I found a map on the internet, and it goes by the exact definition that I have not yet explained. A small bit of Russia, especially the part near Estonia, it cuts out Finland though, which could be controversial. You also have the fact that Turkey's on the map, which makes sense. Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia are not on the map though, which means that this could be, well, correct. But then if you didn't already notice, Finland is not on this map, which we need Finland to be on the map. So I'm going to keep on checking for some pictures. This is actually quite hard if you didn't already notice. I found one. Okay, so the map I just found claimed that a lot of, well, Western Russia, all the way to, the North Ural Mountains is part, but Kazakhstan is not part. Now, because of this, this is have a solid definition.
But the problem is that they put the full Turkey, which will lastly establish that the border that everyone agrees with, some people don't, that it goes through Istanbul. But if the whole Turkey is part, then where does Asia start? Now, let's put this. These borders are non-existent. They're just lines that we put on our globe to show whose land is there and whose land is there. They're not useful. It's just a way of us classifying ourselves into different groups so that we can make fun of people in general instead of being specific. Like, a whole continent can be known for one thing because of one country did something bad. Thus, this is the sad story of borders. Borders aren't anything useful. They don't help us with anything, do they?
Okay, before Sarah continues with her explanation, I found a map which followed the standard understanding of what is Europe and what is Asia. Now, by this map, everything looks normal. There is Egypt, which is halfly here, and there's also Russia and Kazakhstan, which is half, which a lot of people believe in, so I'm going to say that's the standard. So this is the standard map of Asia, which means that we finally found the standard map. But by this standard map, that means that Turkey, only the Istanbul part of Turkey, is European, which means the other map that we saw is wrong. So, now that we found the standard map, time to explain the backlash that this map could make on people. So, maps are things which we drew on paper. It's dividing two people, the same people, away from each other, which should not ever have been done. So, borders are kind of just stuff separating people from each other. If you want to draw a good border which will not attack anybody, make sure that you understand what is happening in between those lines. You can't just write a straight line on a border and call it a day, like the British did multiple different times.
And has it gone well for them? No.
They've got a lot of backlash for making bad borders which lead to wars and multiple lives getting mispatched and killed. So, now by this conclusion, we know that Europe's border mostly ends at the Kazakhstan region, and that not a lot of people, actually almost zero people, consider all of the overseas territories as part of Europe. So does that mean the overseas territories should gain independence? I'm not sure, because these are still French, and according to what the research from French Guiana's website says, they are happy French territories, so I'm not sure about that. So, thank you for watching this video. We are going to try to make a series of this about questions which we have, which we answer. Thank you for joining us in today's video. Please like and subscribe and ring the notification bell, and we'll see you next time.
This is Sarah and Kindev signing out.